In this video, I'm going to show you around Photoshop, and this should be helpful if you've been here before or if it's your first time. Before I start, I just want to preface that I'm going to be talking about the tools that we'll need to get through our project, but there's a whole host of stuff that won't really be relevant, so I'm not going to mention it, but I do want to tell you that Photoshop has their own tutorials that are very straightforward and quick, and I advise all of you to go through them. You can get them by going to Take an Interactive Tour. If you click on this link, or if you click on any of these, you should get them. They're very simple to go through. I especially recommend Bring Out Colors, which talks a little bit about photo editing, which we're not really going to be doing in this class. So now that I've said that, to go forward, what we're looking at here is Photoshop's welcome page. If it's your first time using the program, your recents should be empty. These are the documents I've worked on recently, and you could just click them and it'll open it directly. But most of the time, when you're here, you're going to be creating a new document. So we hit Create New, and if it's your first time in Photoshop, it's going to give you these options as your first page. This is not what you should stick with. Firstly, you should change it from pixels to inches because you're probably more accustomed to using inches than pixels, and absolutely change the resolution from 72 to 300. That will save you a lot of trouble down the line. I also recommend changing the name of your work to something. This is just a tour, so I'm just calling it Test Design with Color, but you can name it whatever you want. And also, I recommend going with something that's a letter size page, just because it's a size that we're accustomed to. And RGB color mode is going to be good for us because we're not printing this, even though I did choose print. If we were going to be printing it, I would tell you to do CMYK, but since we're staying digital, let's just do RGB, and then we can hit Create. When you hit Create and you open Photoshop for the first time, this is what it will typically look like. The Move tool will probably be the one selected. And most of you are working on laptops, so I'm going to show you how to clean this up because this is a lot of wasted space. The first thing that you don't need is the Learn tab. I did just tell you to go through these, but you don't need this tab open taking up space. So let's just drag it out and hit X and it'll be gone. And also, you don't need to worry about your libraries. You probably don't even have libraries right now, and you can just hit X. And already we've just gotten much more space. Now we can use layers. Color will be good, but also I think normally you'll be using swatches. And otherwise, these are perfectly fine. You can probably get rid of gradients, and you would just get rid of a panel by dragging it out. And doing this just clears your space and makes it easier to see what you're doing. Now that we have a document, I want to show you a few essential things. The Move tool will become essential, and then, but you don't need that until you have something to move. Right now we have our background, and that's just layer 0. But really it's the background. The background's not movable. You can't change it. I just tried dragging it, but it didn't let me because it's locked. We can convert it to a normal layer by hitting that convert, or you can just hit this lock and now it's just layer 0 and now you can move it. I want to show you if we have the paintbrush tool, we're going to be digitally painting most of the time using the paintbrush tool. Right now I have this color selected. So if I make this shape right here, I just want to show you that this is now part of layer 0. If I try moving it, it gets stuck on that layer. So what I want to hit is this is an important thing, undo. You can find it under Edit, or you can just hit Command or Control Z and undo it. So the way that we add a layer is, do you see this square with a plus in it? If you hover, it says create new layer. If you click on that, you get a new layer. And now I'm going to hit the brush tool. You can also get that by hitting the letter B. I'm just going to continue making a swirl. Now if I hit V to get the move tool, we can move this shape. And that's how you move a shape. If I were to continue painting using the paintbrush, I'm just going to select another color. Now these are moving together. If I want them to move separately, I'm just hitting Command or Control Z. You would want to make a second layer and do it like that. Now this pink swirl is movable. Okay, so that's the paintbrush tool, the layers. It's important that you have things on the layers that you want them on, and you'll get more of that later. The more we move. And I just want to point out one more thing. We're going to be using the selection tools and the paint bucket tool. What I've just done is use the lasso tool to just create a shape. Now if I'm using the lasso tool, I've just made a selection. And the selection is designated by these marching ants. Now that I have the selection, until I deselect it, I can only edit within this circle. If I use the paint bucket tool, which right now will look like the gradient, so you'd find the gradient, it's under the eraser, you'd hold it down and just hit the paint bucket. As a rule of thumb, anything on the tool panel, that's these panels right here, anything that has an arrow next to it has a flyout menu, and if it doesn't have an arrow next to it, that means there's nothing else there. Almost all of these do have an arrow next to them, which means they all, except for this one right here, the frame tool, which we're not going to be using, it has other things borrowed under them. The paint bucket is borrowed under the gradient tool. Anyway, just like you'd think, the paint bucket fills spaces in. Let's pick a color. So I just painted that in. I used the paint bucket tool. Now if I click this, nothing will happen because it's not inside the selection. But if I, change the color again, I can keep painting inside that. And I can also use the brush to change the color. And now I'm painting, but only inside the brush, only inside the circle. Now to deselect it, I can either go to Select and hit Deselect, or I can hit Command or Control D, and that deselects. To move this shape would be the same as all the others. I've accidentally drawn it on layer 0. Luckily, I can use the lasso tool to select this shape and hit X, well, Command X or Control X. Then I can hit Command or Control V and paste it in. See, that's not ideal because now I've also taken the, the background white with it. So it's not ideal, but these are just the things that you're gonna get more accustomed to as you work with Photoshop. If you have any questions, please let me know.